All right. Well, thank you, everyone. If you do want to, if you feel comfortable, if you want to put in the chat where you are located, if we do have some people that aren't in the Oklahoma City metro, just so I can kind of give a few plugs to some resources that aren't right here to where we are. That way I just kind of know. So like I said, or like Kylie said, I'm Jacqueline Huxford. I'm a dietitian and an international board certified lactation consultant, and I'm the assistant director with the Oklahoma Breastfeeding Resource Center. We are a Title V grant funded group, if you will. Resource Center is honestly what we do. We are anything, everything breastfeeding related. We try to help different hospitals with breastfeeding things. We lead a lot of trainings for WIC staff, public health, nurses. We also run the Oklahoma Breastfeeding Hotline, which we'll talk about. So lots of different things that we do. So just a quick disclosure, I don't have any financial interest, and neither does the Oklahoma Breastfeeding Resource Center or arrangement with any affiliation or organization. I do want to talk a little bit about language. In the breastfeeding world, we tend to use the word mother a lot. And I know that not everyone may identify as a mother or as a woman. So just want to make sure that we are inclusive and respectful to any, to however anyone identifies. So I apologize if I do say mother interchangeably, but we do try to use more inclusive language. We got someone you wanted to see where people were. We do have someone in Norman. Okay, I will give a few Norman resources. Luckily, you're close to OKC. So just a few objectives for kind of what we'll talk about. We'll obviously talk about the importance of breastfeeding, why it's important for both parties, the mother and the baby. Talk about a few laws that help protect breastfeeding and some new ones that have come, that have passed recently. Some different resources, and then the nitty gritty of what do I do when I go back to work if I am breastfeeding. So let me get back on the screen. There we go. So this is our team at the Breastfeeding Resource Center. Becky Mantle is our director, and she's been with the OU system for years. She used to be in the hospital as a lactation consultant. She also is the executive director for the Oklahoma Mother's Milk Bank. There's me there, and then Amanda Parsons. She is our clinic lactation consultant. She's also a dietitian as well, and she does both prenatal lactation appointments and postpartum lactation appointments with the baby. And then Sarah Bellotti is our she does everything for us. She's our finance and administrative coordinator. So she kind of coordinates all the different things that we do. We also do rotations with medical students and with dietetic students. And then we also have a program it's called a Pathway 3 program to becoming a lactation consultant. So we currently actually have 2 students in that program. They're actually called trainees. So we do actually help people pursue their career as a lactation consultant. Okay, so this is our website. It's probably one of the best resources out there. I'm not just saying that because it's ours. I used it before I worked in this position. I worked in public health with the WIC program, both in Oklahoma and in Texas. And it's kind of a one-stop shop, which is what it's meant for. There's, resources as what birthing hospital do I choose? What are some, just like a prenatal education course? If there's what do I do when the baby won't stop crying? How do I find a lactation consultant? What events are coming up? Anything like that. So this is our website here. Okay, so I want to dive into, what do we really need to know about breastfeeding if we get down to the nitty gritty and kind of, I've heard it's good for me, but I want to know a little bit more. So one question a lot of people have is, well, how long do I breastfeed? So finally, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Center for Disease Control, and the World Health Organization all finally agreed on the same thing, is that exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life is what is recommended. Continue breastfeeding after you add in age-appropriate foods, and then to continue breastfeeding for up to 2 years. So the World Health Organization has always had that recommendation for up to 2 years, or as longer as desired by the mother and the child. There is no set, you have to stop at X age. it has been proven time and time again in research that the longer both the mother and the child breastfeed, the health benefits transcend between the two of them. So, you know, they've just gone to show that in those first 2 years of life are the most important. So some benefits for the child, which we most of us tend to know that, you know, okay, yeah, breastfeeding is the best for the baby, but we may not know exactly why or what all that really entails. So this study that was done in 2017 looked at kind of the risks of not breastfeeding and what that can look like for the child. So if a child is not breastfed, they do have a higher risk of obesity, both type 1 and type 2 diabetes, asthma, GI infections, anything to do with the gut. So ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, those diseases that are autoimmune diseases that affect the gut, childhood cancers, hospitalizations, and then sudden infant death syndrome. And the reason that they have a higher risk of SIDS or sudden infant death syndrome if they are not breastfed is that when the baby is breastfed at night, they tend to stay in a more active sleep. So yes, they're sleeping, but they're not fully into that deep sleep. And that is what is going to protect them from having SIDS. So that's why it's very important kind of in those beginning months. For preterm infants, it's even more important for them to have breast milk. It's been shown that if they don't receive breast milk, either from their mother or donor milk, they have a higher risk of developing necrotizing enterocolitis. It's a very scary word. Basically, what that means is that parts of the bowel is dying off, and that breast milk even donor milk has been shown to actually prevent that from happening. Sepsis, a few other things, brain development, longer stay in the NICU, rehospitalization. So giving baby breast milk or donor milk is what's going to help prevent these things from happening. And its impact is dose related. So what that means is that the more milk that they get, the less likely they are to have these diseases. So the more donor milk that they receive or mother's own milk that they receive. So for the mom, we tend to focus on baby, but for the maternal side, there are a ton of benefits and reduced risks with breastfeeding. So overall, any kind of cancer, breast or ovarian, that goes back to the hormones. It helps the body when we're breastfeeding naturally go through a hormone process. And when we're not breastfeeding, we don't go through that process, right? So you have a higher chance of developing those cancers. Heart disease, it actually helps reduce the risk of heart disease. It helps reduce postpartum depression, postpartum weight retention, anemia and short birth intervals. So if you're exclusively breastfeeding, it does have a natural, birth control effect. So you don't ovulate when you're exclusively breastfeeding. So it helps prevent having those short interval births. Okay, so we know that it's good for baby. We know that it's good for mom. So why are not more breastfeeding, or why are not more families breastfeeding, or why are they stopping so quickly? So this was a study done. I know that was 10 years ago, but sadly, this is still kind of true. They found out that 60% of the families who stopped breastfeeding didn't even make it to their own goal. Like they stopped before they said, okay, I'm going to breastfeed for a week. And they didn't even make it, or a year or a month or, whatever. And these were a few of the reasons that they said they stopped. So difficulties with lactation, the infant's nutrition, the mother having an illness and having to take a medication and being told she can't breastfeed anymore, or the effort of pumping, which we'll talk about. So hopefully we can prevent this, right? So the first thing is illness. Yes, you can breastfeed when you are sick. Even the cold, the flu, even COVID-19, all of that is safe to continue breastfeeding your baby. If you have food poisoning, we've gotten that question, the stomach bug, whatever. Yes, you're going to feel horrible, but you are still safe to give your baby that breast milk. Especially with COVID-19, and of course, it's still kind of always lingering in the background, even though we're 3 years post-pandemic. Yes, the mother can still directly breastfeed if she tests positive for COVID-19. It's honestly the safest thing for her to do because it will even more so help protect that baby from COVID-19, because breast milk automatically is going to start building up antibodies to help fight off that virus. And with the vaccine, you are safe to get the COVID-19 vaccine while pregnant or while breastfeeding. Okay, so this is another kind of resource for you. This is the Coalition of Oklahoma Breastfeeding Advocates. It's very long, so we've shortened it to COBA. Every state is going to have a breastfeeding coalition. And basically what that is to help protect women's right to breastfeed, right? And to give them resources to continue to do so. So diving in kind of to the laws that are surrounding breastfeeding, the main thing you need to know is that if you have the right to be somewhere, you have the right to breastfeed your baby. If you're not trespassing, then you're allowed to breastfeed your baby. So if you are ever out in public and you are nursing a child and someone asks you to leave, that is technically illegal. Okay. They cannot do that. They cannot make you leave just for feeding your child. So this is a law card. You may or may not have seen these if you've ever been in the breastfeeding world, that we like to give out to people. You know, now you can have it on your phone, but if someone ever did kind of say something to you, be like, no, I am protected by law. I'm not breaking the law. Like, I can nurse my child. So in 2010, they passed the break time for nursing mothers. That ensures that employers are to provide a reasonable break time for mothers to pump or nurse their child and a safe space to do so. That is not a bathroom, because that's asking someone to prepare a meal in a bathroom, which is not sanitary. Same thing in 2004, well, not same thing, but in 2004, they passed a law that helps protect mothers with jury duty. If they happen to have a nursing child at home and they are called away to jury duty, they can be excused. In 2020, in Oklahoma, we did break time for state employees, and then same in 2021, break time for public school employees to help protect those families if they are pumping at work. So here is a little bit more on those, on the Senate Bill 121, which is the one regarding school districts. If any of you know anything about teachers, right, they have a very strenuous schedule. They don't really have time. They may have a small break, and it's when they're eating lunch. So depending on their schedule, they may not have that time to set aside 10, 15 minutes twice a day to pump. So they've really worked to help kind of, make accommodations for those families at that time in their life. The Pump Act is the newest legislation that has passed. It was passed in December of 2022, so 7 months ago. And it is, the difference between it and what had happened in 2010 is that it kind of bridged a lot of gaps, if you will, and it kind of excluded some of the loopholes. So it's now going to allow more workers to have that protected break time to pump, in the same that the accommodations to be able to do so. So I love this infographic. It's from the Department of Labor. So before the law that stood, which was in 2010, was like, people that work in an office, right? And you could shut the door and you could go to a, nice little room, and you had the time and you could work while you're pumping or whatever you wanted to do. But if you're an agricultural worker, a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, home care workers, taxi drivers, all of this, kind of why this infographic, they weren't really protected by that. So that's why this Pump Act was a huge deal when it passed in December. So they are, in addition to everybody else, protected by law that they can have appropriate breaks to pump while they are at work. So this is the Oklahoma State Department of Health's breastfeeding website, and they have just a lot more information regarding breastfeeding laws. They also have, if you are a breastfeeding friendly work site. So we have a lot of those, tons of them. I just signed, I don't know, I think like 50 to 100 certificates of renewals around the state, which is wonderful that they have a dedicated room for their employees that has, a door and a chair, a door that locks, a chair, a safe place for them to pump. Okay. So this is the milk bank. If any of y'all have ever heard of the milk bank before, we are very lucky that we have one here in Oklahoma. Like I said, I worked for Wick in Texas, and I just thought, well, everybody has a milk bank. In my career, I worked in a town that had one. That is not the case. So they have one in Fort Worth. I think they have one in Houston, 2 for that massive state of Texas. We have one here in Oklahoma City. It's actually housed in Garrison Tower Avenue, beautiful facility. And there are, I don't know, there's a few, obviously there's more around the state, but they closed one in Kansas recently. So we actually took over a lot of their hospitals dispensing this milk to NICUs. So that's kind of the main purpose of a milk bank, is that they take Donor milk. These donors are not paid. They do it out of the graciousness of their heart. Usually if they have an oversupply or leftover milk from their baby. We pasteurize it, which, the milk is not bad, but we do, we pulled 3 different donors together to make, one bottle, if you will, of milk, to get the calorie content and the fat content and all that exactly the same, because it varies depending on person. And we dispense it to NICUs, to those babies, those very critically ill babies that need this milk. So amazing work that's done. We've been around since 2013, so 10 years. We're having a big celebration. I think they postponed it to next year, but anyway, so that's the milk bank. And then I love this picture here. That's one of our little families, and that little guy, they had all this extra milk. All of that was his, that she had in her freezer, and she donated that. So we're very thankful for her and all the other donors. Okay. We also have a very special population with the milk bank. It's luckily not a large percentage, but if they're in the event of a infant loss, or say you happen to lose your pregnancy at like 30 weeks or something, the body will still go through the process of making milk. So the milk bank can actually help you navigate that entire process, whether you want to suppress your milk supply or if you want to donate. And then if you do donate, we have a big memorial tree in dedication to those families and to those ones that they're dedicating their milk in honor of. So it's a little information there. Okay. This is are all 3 OU campuses recognized? I should know this. I signed it and I don't remember. That's terrible. I looked at it yesterday. I will double check on that. They are. Okay, perfect. Okay. They are, excuse me. I can't read. Sorry. Yes, so I signed the certificate yesterday. Y'all are good. All 3 are recognized, which is huge. And I'll show a map here in a little bit. And then the Norman campus, we'll figure out where your spot is for where you need to go. But this is on the homepage of our website. And I really encourage you, if you are expecting, to check this out. It is a free online class. It is in English and Spanish, so you can do it on your cell phone or a computer. And it just goes over kind of the basic stuff of what do I need to know about breastfeeding? What is normal? What is not normal? What's the baby going to do? What am I going to do? All of those things. There's some great videos in there. So I really encourage this if it's your first child, second child, whatever the case may be. Okay. And then this is some hotline information. So the hotline has been around, I think, for 12 or 13 years. It was around before the milk bank. And it is exactly as it sounds. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call the hotline or you can text it. You can see here the texting, that's the keyword OK2BF, and the number is 61222. And then this is the phone number, 1-877-271, and then milk, or 6455. We have 8 lactation consultants that staff the hotline. They're all fantastic. They all work in different fields of lactation, and they all work all over the state, so they're remote. So we try to do that to really reach all areas of Oklahoma. So here's a few. I always like this question. What do you think is the most common reason families contact the hotline? And the spoiler alert is it's kind of all of them. Whether it's breast pain, medication safety, breast pump questions, or milk supply issues, it's a toss-up. We get these questions a lot. Notoriously, it's been medication safety. And most of the time, I'd say 9 times out of 10, whatever medication it is, you're probably safe to breastfeed. Obviously, we want to look that up, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be safe. There are a few out there that you cannot breastfeed with, but not as many as you would think. So we don't have to do this little demo, but I do like to show what text you'll get if you text the hotline. So if you text the keyword, you'll just get kind of like a welcome text, and then it says it in Spanish. You press 1 for English. Our little screener question, which basically just makes sure that there's nothing too urgent going on. If mom has a fever, like if she has mastitis, or if the baby's not latching, or if there's not enough diapers. If that's not the issue, then, that's the last auto-generated text you get. Then you get a lactation consultant that is talking with you. If they say it's urgent, we kind of leave it up to you. You can call and page the lactation consultant that's on call, or you can continue to text. So it's your whatever you prefer. Slide in there twice. Want to touch a little bit on baby-friendly hospitals. If you are expecting, and you may see your hospital on this list, you may not. But what baby-friendly stands for is that it's an initiative that was started by UNICEF and the World Health Organization to help encourage birth practices that are best for mother and baby. So what that means is that they're going to encourage skin to skin after delivery. They're going to encourage the baby rooming in with the family after birth. All staff's going to be educated regarding feeding, appropriate feeding, whether that is appropriate formula feeding or appropriate breastfeeding. Going to make sure that you have the referrals that you need and just basically the best care that you can get while in the hospital. So this is our map of Oklahoma, and this shows all the baby-friendly hospitals in Oklahoma. There are 44 hospitals that are birthing hospitals in the state of Oklahoma. It's really sad. There used to be 46. We've lost 2 in the last couple of years because we're just so rural, and I don't know. But anyways, there are 44. We're obviously all in metropolitan areas, so we're fine. But these are the 11 that we have, and with us having 11 of the 44, 35% of Oklahoma births are done at a baby-friendly hospital, and the national average is like 28%. So Oklahoma is actually doing something really good in health regards, which usually we're like at the bottom of the totem pole. So be proud of us for that. But if you see your hospital on there, if you have more questions, just, kind of let us know. Okay. Support after discharge, after you have your baby. So like I mentioned, Amanda. So Amanda is our outpatient lactation consultant. If you happen to be delivering at OU Children's and your OB is with the OU system in Oklahoma City, she's on the 3rd floor on the same floor as where the OB's offices are. So you may or may not know what I'm talking about, but she's in a very convenient location if that's the case. If not, she can see anybody. She's not just to those patients. She can see anyone. She also does telehealth. So if you don't live close by, she does do telehealth appointments. Thank you, COVID, for allowing that to happen. A lot of her prenatal appointments are done via telehealth, but she does do postpartum mom and baby appointments via telehealth. And then there are a few other resources on here. The hotline, like I mentioned, if you qualify for the WIC program, which is fantastic, they have peer counselors. A few WIC clinics in the state have lactation consultants on staff. There's the Leche League. Google them, go to their website, their Facebook page. They have great resources. Children's First Home Visiting Program, they're also great. And then COBA, which is the Coalition of Oklahoma Breastfeeding Advocates. Okay, let's dive into pumps while we're here, right? Okay, so there are, if you are expecting, or if you know anything about pumping, you've probably started to look and you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. They changed, the market is strong in the breast pump industry. There are always new ones coming out. I try to stay up on top of them, but every once in a while someone will ask me and I'm like, I have no idea what that pump is. Never heard of the brand. But these are some of the more, I guess you say, common ones, and all the different types. So there's manual, there's single electric, double electric, there's portable, there's wireless, and then there's the hospital grade. So hospital grade is going to be for those families that happen to have a baby in the NICU, or if you work at if you work for OUHSC, they do, depending on where you are, they have these available for you to use when you're at work, which is glorious. So it's like being a gold level breastfeeding friendly work site. A lot of WIC programs do that as well for their employees if you're a WIC employee or a state health employee. And the reason for that is that hospital grade pump is designed completely different than all the other pumps. It is meant to be used for more than one person. So it's a closed system. It's sanitary. Milk does not enter the motor, and the motor is die hard. So it's going to last for years and years and years, and for multiple people using it, versus the other ones like this pink one right here is really meant for like 1 or 2 uses, like one person to use it for maybe 1 or 2 babies. Depending on how old the pump, like maybe these other ones, they're really only used, like if you have a baby and you pump for a year, you have your second baby, you want to pump for a year, and all of a sudden you notice your milk supply is dwindling and you can't figure out why. The pump's motor is probably going out, but you have no inclination of it because it doesn't sound different, doesn't act different, but it's not meant to last that long, if that makes any sense. So moving on. So how to get a pump, right? You hear all the time, well, I just get it with my insurance. Well, how the heck do you do that? So yes, insurance covers pumps. I'll talk about that in the next slide. You can obviously buy them. You'll see them at Target, Amazon, Walmart, whatever. When they had baby stores, which are like non-existent now, like Bye Bye Baby, there's the one in Tulsa, or Babies R Us, which is no more. And then you can rent a pump. There are 5 Oklahoma locations. I don't think this is as popular anymore, especially if you have a baby in the NICU. They're going to have one of those hospital grade pumps in the room for you to pump when you're there with baby. And then you would maybe want to use like your personal pump when you're at home. This is huge. I always like to stress this. Please do not purchase a used pump from anywhere. If you are a just between friends shopper, don't do it. You will see them. There'll be a whole table of used pumps because we don't know where it came from. We don't know the sanitation of it. And then, like I was saying before, we don't know how old the pump is in the motor. So you may not have the full suction and strength that you're going to need, and it may impact your milk supply. If you're a WIC participant, you can get your pump through your WIC clinic. Okay, so if you are a Oklahoma Health Science, University of Oklahoma Health Science Center employee. So I did this because obviously I'm a health science employee as well. And I went to this website. I've used this website for years for all kinds of families. Edge Park Medical. You can just Google Edge Park Medical breast pump or whatever. And it will walk you through what to do. So I selected here. I live in Oklahoma and my insurance provider is Cigna. And then I went to the next page, and then it says you can order your pump through your insurance anytime during your pregnancy. This may have changed. It used to be you couldn't do it till like you're in your 3rd trimester or something. I've never tried to do it with a family after baby's been born. I would assume you can still do that as well. So say if you had a premature baby that obviously wasn't planned, you should still be able to get your pump. But these are some of the options that our insurance covers with pumps. So Medela Pump and Style, this brand has been around forever. I do not support it. I don't have any, financial ties to this brand, but WIC programs have used this brand for years. And it's a good pump. We know it's a good pump. We know it works. We've seen it time and time again. They're the ones that make the hospital grade pump, the Symphony, that the big yellow guy that I showed in a picture. They've, of course, just like, the marketing for anything, they've revamped their pumps and they are very fancy. They're very simple to use. They only have 4 buttons. They don't look like a rocket ship. They're easy to assemble. They're great, easy to clean. This is another one, this Moffett Luna double electric pump. It looks similar to like a Spectra. I'm sure it is going to be fine. Spectra is another very popular brand. This one here, and you can see where I'm pointing with my finger. This one here is what you would call it's not portable, because it's not wireless. So you can charge the pump if the motor, and then you can like stick it in your pocket, and then you could walk around while pumping versus having to be tied to an electrical outlet. But of course you have to make sure it's charged. Ardo is a pretty good brand. They've really come more popular over the past couple of years. I've been seeing kind of what their different pumps are. And then my screen's covering this. The LV Stride hands-free electric pump. This one is very, very popular. Another very popular hands-free one, which some of you may have heard of, is called the Willow. I have been told the Willow is very expensive. It's like $400. I've been told if you do want a Willow, depending on your insurance coverage, you can get like a credit towards the Willow. Like say it'll pay $200 worth of the Willow and you have to pay the other $200. But the benefit with these, say if you're a surgeon or, a doctor or whatever, and you don't ever have time to sit down, you can put this in your shirt and you can walk around while you're pumping. But each person's different on what they need as far as a pump. What's great about these is, yes, you can walk around with them, and negative to think about, you can't see it, right? So if the fit doesn't fit right, you can't look into your shirt and look into the pump, right? It only holds about 4 ounces, which is fine. But if you pump more than 4 ounces in a sitting, it's going to overflow and then you have a wet shirt. So just things that you have to be aware of. You know, like I said, each person's different. You have to pick what's best for you. Okay. So a pumping schedule. So can't stress this enough. If everything is fine, you deliver baby latches, you guys are nursing, going through all the normal things. You do not need to start pumping within the first couple weeks. Just let baby nurse while you guys are home on maternity leave, follow baby's cues. If you happen to get a little bit of extra milk, whether you're leaking or you pumped because you were extra full, save that, but don't stress with trying to pump as soon as baby's born, because you know you're going back to work at 8 weeks or 12 weeks. You want to wait until about a week or two before you're going back to work. So say you're going back to work at 8 weeks, at about 6 weeks, that's when you want to start pumping. And I would say pump once a day for a week straight. Let's say if you pump once a day, you get 1 ounce each time. That's 7 ounces before you go back to work. You have that little, kind of stash. But try not to stress yourself out with trying to pump while you're on maternity leave. You want to do it when you get closer to when you're going back to work. When you're with your baby, so when you do go back to work, when you are with your baby, you want to make sure you still feed at the breast. So pump when you're away from baby, feed baby directly from the breast when you're with the baby. And then you want to kind of follow the baby's schedule if they have a schedule at that time as far as when to pump. So let's say you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe you feed baby and then you pump a little bit, you go to work, you get to work, maybe at about 10 you pump at your lunch break, and then maybe at like 2 or 3 you pump. So you've pumped 3 times while at work and then maybe once at home before you went to work. When you get home, feed baby directly from the breast versus pumping again. And this is going to vary, obviously, for each person. It's going to vary on what your work schedule is like, right? And some days you're going to get really busy and you're not going to have time to pump. So maybe next slide, I think, talks about that. So in the event of when that happens, is that it is better to pump for shorter bursts more frequently than to wait 5 hours and pump for 30 minutes. It has been shown that if you pump for 30 minutes, you may or may not get more milk. So if you are on that normal schedule of every couple of hours, pump for 10 to 15 minutes, go on about your day. Because if you sit there and pump for 30 minutes, you may not get any more milk. And then that's been 15 extra minutes that you've been in there pumping when you could have been doing something else. And then same thing if you want to drive back up your supply, because supply issues or something like that, pumping for more shorter bursts of time, like you could pump for 5 minutes every 2 hours and then pump for 15 minutes or something. It just depends on the person. Pumping duration. So how long do I have to pump for? If you're wanting to breastfeed for that first year, and usually kind of based on the way baby may be and what their schedule is, usually pumping for the first year. Now, you don't have to necessarily stop breastfeeding after a year, but you may not have to pump as often. So say if your baby is like 15 months old or something, you may only have to pump 1 time at work, like on your lunch break. You can go for longer periods of time in between pumping sessions because the baby's older, they're not nursing as often. And your supply, it just depends on the person on how often they'll have to pump. Okay. So when should you pump? Obviously when your breasts feel full. And then pump during the times that you would normally feed your baby. I think I talked about that a second ago. Where should you pump? In a sanitary and secure location. You can use your personal office if you have one, or a lactation or a nursing room. And then where to store your pumped milk. You can do your office refrigerator, your personal mini fridge. Honestly, if you don't trust any of that, take a cooler backpack or lunchbox with you to work, put 2 or 3 ice packs in there, put your milk in there throughout the day. By the time you get home from work, just put it in the fridge. It's fine. It is safe for up to 24 hours in a cooler bag with ice. So you could honestly not even have to get up from your desk or wherever you're at. You could just stick it in your bag if you wanted to. So lots of options of what you could do. I love this picture. This is at the Tulsa Zoo, of this little kind of nursing space. And if you've been around different areas, you've probably seen nursing locations. The Science Museum has several. The Dodgers ballpark has several. Some airports have them, some airports do not, which is really annoying. So it just depends on kind of where you are, but you may start seeing these kind of pop up. I was traveling recently and I saw it was called a mama van in an airport, which was just like portable unit to nurse your baby or to breast or to pump. I was like, well, that's fantastic. So, so there's lots of different things that are available out there that weren't probably 10 years ago. Okay, so this is obviously, if you're not an OUHSC employee, I apologize. If you have questions, please let us know. But this is our kind of little map, kind of where you are. I will say, I guess that's maybe not HSC, maybe it is. The College of Allied Health, maybe they had one, I just didn't look real hard, but most people are going to be pretty accommodating. And if you ask, hey, do you have a safe place where I can pump? And they will give you an office or a break room and, lock the door, whatever the case is. So, sometimes you just have to be an advocate for yourself. Don't be shy to ask, because you'd be surprised. People will be like, yes, we can absolutely accommodate you and have a place for you to pump. So, so that's our little map there. Oh, back on that. Okay. These are some storage guidelines. I think these came out in 2018, excuse me. They're pretty much the same. There's probably a newer one out there. But if you pump it at room temperature, if you pump milk at room temperature, it's good for up to 4 hours. Honestly, it's probably good for longer than that, but the CDC definitely likes to go on more of those conservative recommendations. But what I always tell families is if you happen to pump in the middle of the night or something, just leave it there. Don't get up and go in the kitchen and try to, put it in the fridge. By the time you wake up, you can put it in your fridge. Most people keep their houses at like 70, 74 degrees. That it's fine. The milk is not going to go bad. Please do not throw it away. If you forget, just put it in the fridge. When you're thawing milk, you want to use it within 1 to 2 hours once it's completely thawed. If you have like frozen milk and maybe you put it in the fridge to thaw, it'll probably take it a day or two to thaw, and then you want to give it to baby. But you don't ever want to refreeze thawed milk. That's kind of with any type of food, right? Frozen milk, if you keep it in the freezer, like in your refrigerator, is good for up to 6 months because we open that freezer a lot more. If you have a deep freeze, it's good for 12 months because we usually don't open that one as much. It's a more controlled temperature. So those are the guidelines. There's magnets available for this if you want one. Sometimes the hospitals give them out in the discharge packets you can just stick on your fridge. And then a little bit more, just kind of as a last minute about the laws, just can't stress this enough, that you have the right to pump, you have the right to feed your baby anywhere that you are, especially with this Pump Act passing in December. Employees are protected to be able to feed their children. And then, I can't remember what this is. This is for reasonable break time for an employee to express breast milk for their nursing child for 1 year after the child's birth, each time such employee needs to express the milk. So within reason, they're obviously not going to let you pump every hour on the hour, which you shouldn't be needing to do that. But you should be able, or they have to accommodate you to be able to pump for up to a year after your baby's born. And it cannot be a bathroom. That is not acceptable. And it needs to be in a place where you feel comfortable, it's safe, it's secured, so that you can pump in privacy. Okay. And breastfeeding in Oklahoma businesses, kind of that we touched on this a second ago. So OUHSC and the OU campus has designated or recognized as baby-friendly work sites. It's a great program, basically that they have policies in place to support breastfeeding. They allow the break times. They have the space for the families to do it. And then the gold level is that they actually provide a hospital-grade breast pump for employees to use. And if you are ever discouraged from breastfeeding in public, let OSDH know or let us know. Let someone know, and we will handle it. COBA is really good about that. Those complaints when they happen, unfortunately, and you can get their information on their website. Okay. Any questions about anything? Lots of information. Okay. I've got the chat open too. Hopefully you guys know how to get a pump if you need one. That's kind of the biggest thing.